Yeah, I guess I'll have to figure out more of the. I just use Teams for work, so it's a little more um, set up for me. All right, well, awesome. Nigel, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Welcome. I'm sure you have a wealth of knowledge and that our listeners will be very excited to hear about. Hopefully, I can ask you some interesting questions to be able to tease some of that out. But before we jump into that, if you want to just go ahead and introduce yourself to people who don't know you, a little bit about your career and what you care about, what you're passionate about.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me, Daniel. Great to chat with you, and happy to participate in this. So, Nigel Choung-You. I'm a consultant in the technology space. So, I work with cloud software, Workday, to be specific for those who are familiar with cloud software. But I work it's all called ERP software, and I work in helping higher education clients in the colleges and university space implement their financial accounting systems and financial management processes. So I've been in that industry space for about 15 years. Been helping clients and institutions get their systems up, running, managed, maintained in that space. And was previously worked in the PeopleSoft technology, now currently working in Workday, but essentially same type stuff, administrative functions, financial systems for large institutions is what I do in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, so when we were talking a little bit prior to we're starting the recording and starting the podcast, you mentioned that you're very passionate about people and about investing in people. And I think that from knowing you outside of work, we both go to the same church. I've definitely seen that in your life. And so I just want to hear a little bit more about how you or how the investing in people that you've been doing throughout your career has both paid off in your career as well as outside of your career and building from at least what the outside looks like a very good life with the career being a big important part of that. But especially for a consultant, you don't seem like someone whose life is driven by your career. It seems like you have a great career that is really facilitating a good life. So I'd love to hear more about how relationships have built into that.
Yeah, so I always tell people, like, it doesn't matter what your business is, whether you're a plumber, whether you are an entrepreneur, whether you're a coach, whether you're a consultant, whether you're a garbage man, people is your business, right? Because you're whatever thing you're doing, you're serving people, right? If you're if you're a plumber, you're fixing someone's toilet, right? If you are a construction worker, you're building someone's building or someone's house. So there's some person on the other end of that service or transaction that you're providing. And how that person perceives that transaction or service is really going to determine or equate to your success. So I've always been people focused. And I found that when you invest in people around you and the development of the people around you, they are more willing to work with you. Right. So when you are, no matter, again, in some industries, you've got complex problems to solve, complex issues to get through. And often those require multiple minds and team efforts, right? And when someone wants to be a part of your team, or someone is more willing to want to be a part of your team and more willing to want to work through a difficult situation with you, when they know that you're not just looking out for your own best interest, when you're only looking out to fatten your pockets or better your situation, but you're not only invested in your individual development, but the development and advancement, the betterment of all of the people around you. And that's including your customers, your clients, your teammates, your maybe your direct reports that you're supervising, or people who are in your care. Um, People will respond to that, right? So I am a lifelong learner, and I always want to invest in my development, my increased knowledge, my increased understanding, my increased education, but also want to invest in those people around me, right? How can I help you not only do the job that you have in front of you well, but how can I help best prepare you for the next job, right? What's your next step, right? Assuming if you're a widget
Mm,
maker today, but you have plans to be a manager of widget makers tomorrow, what are the things we can do to position you to become not just a good, excellent widget maker today, but a manager of widget makers tomorrow, right? What are you building towards? when people see that you're invested in their next step, they want to work with you. They want to invest in whatever you're working on with them, right? So, and a long time ago, I used to be a basketball coach, assistant basketball coach for high school, and so I always put things into the parameters of a team, and how well a team functions often equates to how successful that team is, and what goals are met, the achievements that are accomplished by that team. So when there's people across the team who are invested in, again, individual development and performance, but also the development and performance of the team, investing in each other, investing in the well-being of each other. It's just I found great results at every stop along my career. There's never a bad time to invest in people, to invest in their development, to invest in their growth, to help develop their understanding. So I'm passionate about that, and again, it translates to, from the workplace to sports, youth sports. I mentioned I was a youth coach. If you play in a band, it translates. It translates to almost every aspect of life, and investing in people is never a bad thing, right? I've never seen not a good return come from investing in and being attentive to the people around you and their needs, growth professionally, personally, emotionally, spiritually, the development of those around you.
Awesome. So one thing that you mentioned in there, I think there's so you're a manager of a group of consultants, right?
Yeah.
And I think the applicability of that is so clear, investing in building the team around you so that your team is more successful. But if you are the widget maker, if you are the brand new, I just got my first job out of college, what does investing in people look like?
So that's a great question, and I always tell people first, in also looking to invest in the people around you, still having a full understanding of what your responsibilities are, what are the most important tasks and priorities on your plate, and then becoming as knowledgeable as possible, being as proficient as possible as you can in the role that you're placed in. So if you are coming in and you're junior level widget maker on the team, right? You want to first learn how to make those widgets with a spirit of excellence, right? I want to make the best widgets that has ever been made. But also there is a leader of that team of widget makers, right? And they have needs that they have, and they have things that they're trying to accomplish as the leader of that widget making team. So for our young worker coming in, I would always encourage you have open conversations with your team leader, with your manager, with your boss, letting them know I'm invested in learning my individual responsibility, but what can I do to help you advance the team? What can I do to help you? Are there other tasks that I can pick up? Is there anything else that I can do to help lighten your load or help move this team forward? I've found that managers, leaders, bosses respond well when they have an employee that has determined not only are they going to learn their role, learn their responsibility, and execute it well, but again, they're also looking, how can they help me more? How can they help the team more? How can they move us closer to accomplishing our mission, accomplishing our goal? That's how someone from a junior role can have that same investment in people mindset, and still be adding value, where you may be coming in and thinking, well, I don't know anything. Right? How am I going to help and invest in people around me? And taking that initiative to learn everything you can learn, deliver everything you can deliver for the team, but also being proactive in looking out for that development, right? Saying, hey, team lead, hey, manager, hey, boss, what can I do better? What can I do more to improve individually, but also to help this team move along closer to our goal, to whatever we're striving to achieve?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I had the opportunity to talk with a more senior engineer that I was working with, and she echoed that a lot with, if you're doing your job well, that's how you're helping me in a lot of ways. And yes, there might be extra specific things that you can do, but if you're diving in. For me, it's definitely getting in the details and don't make stupid mistakes. Don't make me, when I'm double checking your work, have to redo your work. And so by getting good at what you're doing, you're actually serving and investing in your leader and in the team, and while also obviously developing your skills and helping yourself along.
Definitely.
So I think that's an interesting dynamic from the younger person, from the junior level person's perspective of what it actually looks like to invest in people.
Yeah, I 100% believe that. And whatever, again, I think sometimes people come in, they're insecure thinking, I'm the bottom person on the rung, right? I'm the bottom man, I'm the bottom woman on the rung. What am I going to contribute? And I would say always come in, again, I'm going to learn as much as I can learn, soak up as much as I can soak up, understand not just my piece of the puzzle, but as much as I can understand larger pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And seeing how can I contribute to help us get closer to our goals, to meet our mission. And that's people love that type of person. They look to promote that type of person. They look to give that type of person more responsibilities. They look to give that person more opportunities. I think it's something that you'll see that extra initiative and investment will get, I think, reciprocated back to you with additional opportunities for advancement, opportunities for growth, opportunities for promotion, and in general, just is going to make you, again, a person that other people want to collaborate with to achieve good things.
So something you said in there was talking about kind of aligning what you're doing with the overall goals of the team and actually asking questions. And I think hilariously, I work on some projects that are very big, and I can be handed a piece of work, an assignment to do that might last a couple hours or a day, and that I'm actually not sure what the point of this is. And so one thing that you mentioned in there was you're making sure that your work's aligning with the long-term goals. And so how do you go about actually understanding, you work at a huge company working at Deloitte. I'm sure that you've been on projects or that you have junior people on your projects who are doing, X task over and over, but how do you actually align your work with the bigger goal?
Well, and that's something I always encourage leaders to kind of communicate to the people working on their teams, right? It's like you may just be doing X task, and yeah, X task is it is what it is. It's not making the whole thing run, but it is important. But as much as you can, helping your team and your teammates understand how that X task works into the overall larger picture and what the overall mission is. Sometimes it may be harder to connect those dots than others, but I often, if I get a new person on, I try to give them that larger context and not just say, hey, just do this one thing and don't ask any questions, right?
Mm-hmm.
This one is necessary or important because it feeds into this thing, which helps drive this overall business process or this overall business function. I try to give people that background, that insight, so they don't just feel like they're mindlessly and completing a task or flipping a switch or checking a box, but they see how it plays into the larger. A lot of times there is a task that seems meaningless or not fruitful does play into a larger initiative or it's there for a reason usually, and people just don't know, haven't been well communicated to what those reasons are. So I put that on the leaders of projects, the leaders of companies, the leaders of businesses, the leaders of initiatives, to paint that vision for the people who you're working with, who are working for you, working with you, so that everyone understands what the overall goal is, what the overall mission is. Then me doing that task, which seemed in and of itself in a vacuum, didn't seem that important. Now we're like, oh, it actually is more important because it helps this other thing flow better. It helps this other thing process correctly. It helps this thing function in the way that it was supposed to function. So I always encourage leaders to paint that vision for their teams and help people understand how the smaller, maybe seemingly unimportant tasks actually are more important than the people sometimes think.
Yeah. No, it definitely helps. When I was volunteering in South Africa, it was really clear to see like what I was working on directly impacting people. And there was a lot of motivation just kind of that existed in the fact that, you could go, I was working on this hospital. You can find the website and see what their mission is and see pictures and videos. And you're like, tearing up at work, and it's so easy. But then I jump back into a position where today I was working on connecting different parts, like different metal parts together, and I needed to make sure that they all fit together. But my boss actually, back when I was an intern and I did the first one of these, he sat down with me and basically walked me through, from a financial perspective, what happens if we mess up one of these parts and you hold up a construction crew, and how much construction crews get paid, and what will happen if I don't take this seriously. And it was really good for me to be like, wow, this is so important. And a couple months later, I ended up catching a mistake on one of these things, and was able to see like the impact of what I did, even if it was the most menial task that we do at the company. So it's definitely important.
Yeah, not every task we do, most tasks we do are not going to be maybe as impactful or moving as the stuff you're working on in South Africa, right? But every business, every company has goals, has a mission, has something that they're trying to get accomplished. And if those menial tasks normally roll up or feed into or contribute to some larger thing, some larger cause, some larger goal, some larger mission. So definitely communicating those, I think, always helps. Always helps. It gives maybe adds a little more motivation for people to do those menial tasks, or what we think are little and unimportant tasks, and do them well. Do them with a spirit of excellence.
Yes. Oh, I like that. The spirit of excellence sounds like something from your coaching days, maybe.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So I want to throw a slightly different, but I think it's still on the same topic, question at you. I recently read So Good They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport. I don't know if you've ever heard of that, but the main principle I think underpinned the book was that he was basically saying, don't go search for this job that you're super passionate about, that you should do a really good job where you are. And, sure, try to line your skills. Like, don't just pick a random job, but wherever you are, if you do a very good job, you're going to build up what he called career capital. He was kind of taking your, work experience and putting it in economic terms. And then over time, you're able to trade those for the things that you really want in a job. And you're someone who I see as, you have a job a lot of people would like to have. And yet, even being a consultant, you're part of the worship band at our church. You're at least not following the stereotype that I've seen of the consultant who is gone all week, never sees his family, comes home, works all weekend. So I was wondering if some of the more difficult things that you've done during your career have built up those skills that you were then able to kind of leverage into the position in life that you have, or if you think it happened in a different way.
So that's a great question, and obviously, seasons change. So I'm married with 4 children. So the needs from a family life, personal private life perspective of a married man with 4 children is very different than a young single guy that doesn't have those commitments. But I will say overall, I would say I'm seeing a shift in the marketplace because of you hear about the Great Resignation going on, right? Where more people are maybe leaving jobs than people are running to jobs, right? So I think the fight for sharp, smart, hardworking talent is becoming more fierce day by day. Obviously, it varies by industry, but overall, industries are having to become more competitive to keep smart, dedicated people around. So I think this answer today is maybe different than it would have been 15 years ago, right? Where it was more, maybe there was more of an overall tenor in the industry of, shut up and get your job done from companies and industries. Whereas I think companies overall, definitely my company is more invested in, hey, you know what? Well-being does matter. You do have a family, and we can't ignore that, right? You've got responsibilities that come with that family, that come with being a father, that come with being a mother, that come with being a husband or a wife. We want to make you have a sustainable work-life balance, so you're not joining that Great Resignation. Rather, you're still producing excellent results for us, but still having all of your needs met from, from your personal life, spiritual, emotional, whatever those needs are. But from an individual perspective, I think circling back to answer to your question, it's about you making the commitment, right? Prioritizing, understanding what do I have to get done before I sign off of work today, right? What is a must-have versus what can I push back, right? And then counting the cost, like sometimes completing that last task, completing that last report, completing that last whatever it is not going to supersede me being at my son's game, for example, or being at my daughter's dance recital. And I need to prioritize accordingly, right? Just like I need to prioritize the business things on my plate, I need to integrate the prioritization of my family as well. Just as much as being a good consultant, being a good professional, is being a good husband, being a good father, being a good brother, being a good son. So prioritizing the things, the events, the people in my life, so that I am responsive and where I need to be for those other more important people, frankly, in my life, is something that I encourage everyone at all levels to practice as soon as they can. Obviously, there's peaks and valleys, right? Sometimes you just have important business milestones, project milestones, certain things where it's just going to be more time consuming than the normal week, right? But I think the goal is to make those things exceptions and aberrations and not the norm, where I'm working 90 hours a week, every week. I'm gone all the time. My kids never see me, never get to spend time with me. That might get you faster up the corporate ladder, so to speak, but that's not going to equate to overall success in life. And
Yeah.
I could find you plenty of men and women with buckets of money that it tell you the same thing, that they maybe sacrificed more than they wanted to in hindsight. And
Mm-hmm.
they have a lot of money, they maybe have a great title, but their family may not be in the place that they wanted. And for me, at the end of this, at the day when I retire, for me to have said that I had a successful career, it would have meant that I had a successful career without the sacrifice of having a successful family, being a good dad, being a good husband, being a good brother, being a good son, etc., being a good friend. So it's incorporated, it's incorporated into my life approach, if you will. And I've turned down jobs, I've turned down opportunities where I didn't think it was going to work and help me stay aligned with those goals for my family and for my personal life. And I don't think twice about any missed opportunities. I feel like I'm where I need to be, and I'm I'm successful enough without having to sacrifice those things, which become you have to create your non-negotiables essentially.
Yeah.
So I want to be successful, but there's some non-negotiables. When you have a wife, when you have kids, which will be someday for you. You got to create those non-negotiables and say like, hey, I want to be successful in this business, in this corporation, in this industry, but here's a non-negotiables. We can't touch this, right? And for me, earlier in my career, that meant not consulting, not traveling, because I didn't want to not be around for my young kids at the time. Consulting then had less remote opportunities, and it was more on the road 100% all the time. But we're in a different world now. So consulting it works more for my family now than it did then. But that's a decision every person, every individual needs to make. But you got to create some non-negotiables, and you got to prioritize not just the business milestones, but the important relationships and events and milestones that you need to take a part of as a family person, family man, person for your personal life in general.
Yeah. Oh, I think that makes a ton of sense that yes, your career is important, but it's part of a life. And you'd rather say I have had a good, successful life than at the expense of perfectly maximizing my career versus I had a great, successful career at the expense of my life.
100%. 100%.
I think that's really good. It's certainly good for me to hear, and because it can be very hard to make decisions as, especially with young people, or I'll just speak for myself. If someone came and offered me more money, it would be hard for me to turn that down. Whereas there's some aspects of my job that are so nice. And I've even had this conversation with my boss where he was like, once you establish yourself, because we're a company that focuses on skills, you're going to have people come and offer you more money. And just, talk with me about it. And if that's the decision you make, that's the decision you make. But you're going to be losing out on some of those quality of life things that are really nice. And maybe you don't notice, because I was really blessed. Like, people will talk about the difficult, like toxic environments they've worked in or the crazy hours they've worked. All my internships and then jumping into my job, I've always been in a very good culture. Like, love my boss. I would just hang out with him even if I wasn't getting paid to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good thing to keep in mind, especially if you've been blessed to be in a good situation, that, the idea you said, turn down a promotion. It's like, what? Why would you do that? It's a different way of thinking.
Yeah, 100%. And there are people out there who will tell you climb the corporate ladder, right? Move every time you get an offer for more money, and there will be offers for more money. But when you take a step back and again put in priority what's most important, I made a commitment that because of my family and my ties, my roots, that I didn't want to move out of Gainesville, right, where we live, and obviously, there's lots of opportunities in some of the larger metropolitan areas. But I had made a commitment, right? I said, here's where I'm going to be for the next extended period of time, because that's where my family is rooted, and that's home base for me. So interesting opportunities always still come across my desk for different cities, relocation and things like that. But it just wasn't something that I was willing to consider, because that was a non-negotiable for me, right? So there may be other non-negotiables for you or for the next person. You have to determine what those are. But uh, uh, you know, especially when you're younger in your career, and you may be not making $1 million a year out of the gate, right? So a raise, right? That's a big deal, right? Someone's going to come offer you another position where there is an increase in dollars. So I'm not saying the decision is always easy, right? Because money talks, money moves people. As career professionals, right? It's nice to be well compensated for the work that you do. Um, but again, it still goes back to the priority, right? Well, 5 grand or 10 grand more per year, is that worth me changing my quality of life equation, my work life balance to where it's maybe going to be in a negative position for 10 grand more? What's that price to say?
Yeah.
I'm now going to put myself in a bad personal, spiritual, emotional place. But hey, I got 10 grand more per year, or 15 grand more per year, or 20 grand more per year. You got to count that cost and make sure you're making the right decision, not just on a dollar sign. But I know that's harder when you're not making as much younger in your career, right out of school. So it's a tough decision.
Yeah.
But with I would say identifying those non-negotiables will help you in that decision-making process.
Mm. Yeah, I think that's cool. The idea of non-negotiable, something that you're not going to say, there's no number, right? That's going to change this. And that's actually another aspect of the same book. He was talking about how he graduating from MIT. He'd done a PhD in computer science at MIT. He had, some finance opportunities that, of course, paid a lot of money, but some of his core values involved, just the type of impact he wanted to have, and finance didn't do that for him. And he said it was a really easy decision, because he had this, if it doesn't hit these check boxes, I don't care what the number is behind it. And, in my mind, I was like, oh, but it would be so hard to turn down that kind of money. But it's, I've never talked to someone and they've been like, oh, I'm glad that I fudged my ethics for the extra money, or I'm glad that I sacrificed my family for the extra money.
Right. Like that. Like I said, that goes back to my point, right? I can find you lots of people that towards the end of their career have a bucket of money in the bank, but maybe would, if they could go back, would do some things differently for their family, for their personal life. So it's not to get up the corporate ladder that fast and get that bucket of money. Would have prioritized some other things differently.
Awesome. So before we head out here, there's one, I guess, last aspect of this question. Um, and it's something that is talked about in the book as well. So good they can't ignore you. Yeah. Which is, I guess, I'm talking about it a lot because I think it's giving me a good framework to kind of build the beginning of my career off of. And so I want to kind of test it against some people who I trust and who have some wisdom. But that definitely we're almost talking about the second half of the book, which is once you've built valuable skills, then you're in a position to say, you know what, I actually don't want to raise, I want this better life this thing that increases my life, or, if you'd had the opportunity to go remote earlier. And so, but the fact that you have to have those skills, and I know for you, it's a very deep understanding of a very useful set of software and the ability to implement that. So as we wrap up here, I'd like to hear about what is the best way to build those skills so that you can be in the position to turn down a raise because you're actually being offered that.
That's a great question, and that answer, may vary. I'm working in technology. Cloud technology is just growing in popularity, growing in importance. Everyone wants to get to the cloud, right? There's a race to the cloud. So I happen to be working in an industry that's hot right now, which makes I have a more desirable skill. But I will say, whatever industry you work in, whatever your expertise is, understanding not only the technical aspects, but again, who are I guess the old adage is people, process, and technology. To the best understanding that you have of the people doing the deeds, the processes involved in those people doing their job, the technologies or the tools at their disposal, the best understanding you have of those three buckets and how they work together to produce optimal results, generally gives you some valuable knowledge, right? And I think that translates outside of cloud software, where I'm currently working, into other areas as well. If you have a great understanding of the people that do this, the processes involved in them doing it, the technology and tools that they use to get their job done, that it gives valuable insight, right? That's when I go to the chiropractor to fix my back, I want them to have a solid, firm understanding of how to look at what's going on with me, and what processes or tools I can use to improve my, whatever it is, my back, my leg, my knee, whatever is going on. If I'm going to the plumber to fix something, right, I want them to have a command of whatever is going on with that situation so they can produce the results that I need. If I'm going to an air conditioning person, if I'm going to whoever, for what it is, having a command of the people, the process, technology, or the tools that are involved, I think creates value, adds value for you,
Yeah.
and makes you more of a commodity in whatever industry sector that you're working in.
Oh, that makes sense. People, process, technology. So the people is the people you're working with. That's kind of self-evident. The process is the actual the process, what you're moving through, what you're doing, and then what technology aids in that process.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I really, really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for jumping on and sharing your wisdom.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I hope I'll be up in Gainesville and be able to see you sometime soon.
Yeah, man. Well, it was great catching up. Happy to jump on the podcast, and look forward to more discussions in the future.
Thank you so much. Have a good one. God bless you.
All right, man. You too.